The NFL regular season starts tomorrow, and I cannot wait. Welcome, guys. My name is DK, and in this video, we're going to be breaking down the Thursday Night Football showdown slate opening night. We got the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. Should be a really solid game. This is the first time watching our content for Daily Fantasy Sports, NBA, NFL, WNBA, as well as for player prop stuff like Prize Picks, Underdog, Parlay Play. Underdog, they are the sponsor of today's video. You can sign up with the code DKDFS to claim your free pick plus first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Take advantage of that for first time users. That is a huge offer. Would highly recommend it. And if you guys are not familiar with Underdog, they do have a ton of props already posted for week one, a lot posted for the game tomorrow as well. You're building out slips of player props. They also have drafts where you can compete against other people. So take advantage of that, guys. Link is down below. And if you're looking for more content, as always, you can check my Patreon. That is linked in the description. All right, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. And first, we can go over, I should have it up, but we can go over the total. So right now, we're looking at 46.5 over under, and the Chiefs are currently 3-point favorites. So I think what we can do here is we can just go top to bottom, kind of talk about the players, and go from there. So we'll start with the two quarterbacks here. You got Lamar Jackson, 11.4K, Patrick Mahomes at 10.4. Both should be pretty popular. I think Lamar Jackson probably has a little bit of a higher floor, obviously a little bit more mobile than Patrick Mahomes, but both have a similar ceiling. Both have, again, a massive ceiling. So two quarterbacks look really good. I think if you're playing cash games, you probably play Lamar and the captain, but no issue with either quarterback here. They both look great. Now, going down the line a little bit, you got Travis Kelce at 9.6K. Obviously, he's getting a little bit up there in age. I think he's going to start slowly regressing this year. I don't think he's going to take like a massive step back, but I don't think we're going to get the Travis Kelce that we got, 3-4 years ago. So 9.6K, I think he's a reasonable play. Again, still expect him to be out there a ton, still expect him to get a lot of targets, but there are a few misprices with some skill position players, which we'll talk about. I don't think Travis Kelce is a must by any means, but still expect him to play a majority of the game, and still expect him to run a lot of routes and get a lot of targets, especially in the red zone. Derrick Henry is 9K, so he's going to be the lead back here for Baltimore. And if you take a look at the backfield for the Ravens, they don't have a lot of depth behind Derrick Henry. I mean, Justice Hill expected to be the third down back, but they don't really have a lot of bodies there. So Derrick Henry, if you think that Baltimore is going to be playing from ahead in this game, then Derrick Henry looks very appealing. Now, they're 3-point dogs. That they definitely could be playing from ahead in this game. If they fall behind, it'll be interesting to see, do they phase them out a bit, kind of like what Tennessee would do when they would fall behind, or do they keep them out there and they're just going to have them run routes too? Be interesting. But yeah, if you're worried about, Baltimore falling behind in this game and then kind of phasing out Derrick Henry, then maybe you look to Justice Hill, who we'll talk about as a value option. Isiah Pacheco, 8.4K. So me personally, I prefer Pacheco to Derrick Henry. Factoring in salary, I think the floor is a little bit higher. I think he'll be a bit more involved in the passing game. Now, if you take a look at the Chiefs and their backup running back, no CEH. So you're going to have newly acquired Samaje Perine kind of running as the RB2. Now, taking a look at some news here for Perine and Juju. So they're both going to be available. But Andy Reid said they'll be cautious in overloading Perine. So again, he's only been with the team for like a week. I don't expect him to be out there a ton. Which means I think we're going to heavy dose of Isiah Pacheco. And again, I expect him to be involved in the passing game as well. So if we're going to, compare the two running backs, for me, I prefer Pacheco to Henry. He's cheaper, and I think he'll be a bit more involved in the pass game. Looking at the top receivers here, you got Zay Flowers at 8K. I think a reasonable option. He's the clear wide receiver 1 here for Baltimore. I think we'll talk about some of the guys that, probably look a little bit better point per dollar, but still the ceiling is pretty high in Zay Flowers. Like if you take a look at, 3 of the last 5 games, he went for 20 plus fantasy points. So the upside is there. Expect him to lead the team in targets this year. I like the ceiling there on Zay Flowers. Rashee Rice is someone I'm extremely high on going to the year. I did 1 season long draft. And I have both Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, who we'll talk about in a sec. But yeah, Rashee Rice, I mean, take a look at kind of what he did at the end of the year, right? He was just peppered with targets, 8 targets, 9 targets, 12 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets, right? So early on in the season, right, he wasn't out there a ton, but they realized that he was their clear top receiver kind of midway through the season. And yeah, I think the ceiling is massive for Rashee Rice. I think he can have a huge breakout year this year. So expect him to be utilized all over the field. I expect him to play majority of the game. I think he has a high floor plus ceiling. So I think he's one of the most mispriced players on the slate. So very, very high on Rashee Rice. He's going to be popular, but for good reason he should be. Another player I think is mispriced here is Mark Andrews, right? 6.4K. It just feels too cheap, right? Like usually Mark Andrews in the showdown slate's kind of in the like mid 8K to 9K range, and he's 6.4K. So he's another guy with a relatively high floor plus ceiling. He's someone that can utilize a lot in the red zone. We know the Ravens love going to their tight ends, right? They like running 2 tight end sets. And yeah, Andrews is going to be heavily involved here, and I think he's at a decreased price point. So Mark Andrews looks good, looks like one of the better point per dollar plays on this slate. We have no Hollywood Brown, so we'll talk about some other Chiefs receivers here in a bit. He is the one guy confirmed out for Kansas City. And then you have like the backup quarterbacks. And then you got Xavier Worthy here, 5.8. So, I think the range of outcomes for Xavier Worthy is pretty wide for the first game. I do think the ceiling, though, is very high on him. Expect him to be the wide receiver, too. Now, I do think Kansas City will kind of rotate guys behind Rashee Rice. We saw that last year. The Chiefs would play a lot of receivers and kind of just mix guys in and out. But yeah, I do think the ceiling is extremely high and Worthy. One of the fastest guys in the NFL, and reasonable price point. So like I said, relatively wide range of outcomes, but a massive ceiling for a guy in this price range. So like the upside in him a good amount. Rashad Bateman at 5.2K. Obviously, he had a pretty disappointing year last year. He is the Ravens wide receiver too. I think he's a fine kind of contrarian play. I think I would rather take the shot on Worthy at a similar price point. But I do think Bateman's going to come in with relatively low ownership, and I think a fine contrarian play. Expect him to still be out there a ton. Again, the wide receiver too, so I think he's a fair contrarian play. The 2 kickers, kind of indifferent on with Tucker and Harrison Buckner. Both good kickers. I think Tucker's slightly better kicker, but 2 of the better kickers in the league for sure. 5K and 4.6K reasonable salary. So don't forget about the kickers. They're both relatively safe plays in this game. And then you got Justice Hill at 4.4. So, like I said, if your lineup kind of has to tell a story. So let's just say you're playing the lineup of, okay, I think Kansas City gets off to a pretty big lead. I think they're going to be playing from like a 2-touchdown lead majority of the game. Then a guy you want to target is Justice Hill, right? Maybe you're kind of going for a Chiefs onslaught. I think the Ravens are playing catch up. Justice Hill would be a guy that would make sense in that scenario, right? Because I think if they do fall behind early, they're not going to completely phase out Derrick Henry, but I think Justice Hill will be utilized a bit more in the passing game. He's the better pass catching back for sure. 4.4K, not like an amazing price point, but again, Baltimore last year, they would rotate like 3 running backs. I think it's just going to be like Derrick Henry, kind of the early downs, and Justice Hill in the passing down situation. So I'm intrigued by Justice Hill. The 2 defenses here, you got Ravens at 4K, Chiefs at 3.6K. Both fair plays. We'll see if the ownership comes in on them. I would expect probably somewhere around like 20% or so. So yeah, no real strong takes on the defenses. They're both fine. Again, if you're building like an onslaught build, you want to build Chiefs onslaught, sure, you can include the Chiefs defense in that. The defenses are fair plays. Again, ownership will kind of dictate what I want to do there. Wide receiver 3 for Baltimore should be Nelson Aguilar. Expect him to be playing in the slot. Like I said, not like an insane year last year, but relatively cheap price point. Probably is out there for over half the game, I would say. So a fair value play. Now, the Chiefs receivers behind Rashee Rice, and we talked about Xavier Worthy. I think he has the highest ceiling. We're talking about the guy that I think probably plays the next most would be Justin Watson. He was out there a good amount last year. Again, didn't really do a ton with the snaps. He had 1 decent game with 5 catches and 11 targets, but he's relatively cheap. And if we're talking about those kind of secondary Chiefs receivers, I do think he'll have the most opportunity. The 3.2K makes him playable as a punt option. Again, no CEH, so Samaje Perine is going to be the RB2 here for the Chiefs. Again, complimentary role behind Pacheco. We already went over this quote that read they want to be cautious in overloading Perine. You want my guess? I would say you're probably looking at like a 75-25 split, maybe 70-30. We saw Perine. We know what he can do, right? He's a decent pass catcher. And again, I think he'll be out there in some pass down situations. So 3K, I think he's a similar play to what Justice Hill is. Similar play. And it comes in a little bit cheaper. Now, Isiah Likely's at 2.6K. So kind of unsure of what I want to do with Likely. Obviously, second half of the season, Mark Andrews is a bit banged up for some games and Likely did play well. But now Andrews is healthy. We'll see how much Likely is going to be out there for. Obviously, a guy that can look to in the red zone. He's relatively cheap. He is a good pass catcher. We know that. So I think Likely is in play here for value. Other than that, let's see. So probably easier if I just bring up the depth chart here to kind of talk about some of these back end guys. So outside the top receivers here for the Ravens, again, Zay Flowers, Bateman, Aguilar. You might see a little bit of Wallace and Walker. They're just kind of dart throws for me. Tylan Wallace coming in at 1.4. Walker coming in at 2.4. Don't love either. We mentioned Watson. I think he's going to be the guy that probably plays the most of like the secondary receivers. Behind him, I mean, you got the group of like McCole Hardman, Sky Moore, and Juju. We'll see how much Juju plays. Again, he was recently signed as well with Perine. If you're worried about the playing time for him, I mean, you can take a dart on like the veteran Hardman or Sky Moore. Has been around for a few years now, but again, nothing I feel really confident in there. We talked about the backup tight end, Isiah Likely. I will say, I do think Noah Gray is a solid value play. So he's coming in at 1.6K. He played like over half the game last year. Ran a route on a good amount of snaps as well. So again, not a guy with like a massive ceiling, but at this price point, you don't need a lot for him to pay it off. Like if he gets a couple catches, that could be enough on this slate at this price. So he's going to be out there. He should be out there for over half the game. I think he's a reasonable punt play. Don't really think there's anything else to mention here, though. I think we kind of covered everything. Again, the player pool is pretty wide here just because they have guys that these teams have cut. They haven't cut them out of the player pool because they posted this. I think like a month before or something. This contest has been up for a while, so that's why there's so many guys in the player pool. But yeah, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for the video. Like I said, I cannot wait for NFL to be back. We do have a game on Friday as well. So we got, again, opening night tomorrow. We got a game on Friday. And then obviously we got the big slate on Sunday. We got Monday Night Football as well. So I am super excited to just watch football all week/weekend. But yeah, guys, if you do enjoy the content, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Really appreciate the support as always. And I'll see you all in the next video.